In this video, we are going to go ahead and set up our basic scoring system so that way we can keep track of our score as we destroy our targets. So let's jump right into it. The first thing we need is a way to save our score. And this should be pretty simple. We're going to add a score variable to our player so that way we can keep track of the score, and we'll update it as needed, and then of course reset it if we have to as well. So let's go ahead and go to our variables, add a new variable. We'll type this player score. I personally tried to give it a little bit of a robust naming convention rather than just score, just so I know this is the player score. Maybe we want the enemy to keep track of how often they kill the player. So if you have two different score variables, it would be a little more difficult than just player score or enemy score. But that's just me being weird. So we have our player score, and we have it set to 0, so we're good to go there. Let's go ahead and create a blueprint interface for our player and an add to score event. Basically, when our enemy dies, it's going to tell the player to increment the score. Interfaces. Let's go ahead and go to blueprints. Blueprint interface. Let's call this one blueprint interface player. So that way we know it's an interface for the player. We're going to call this one add to score. Now the nice part about this is we need to add a variable into it. We're going to go to inputs, new. We'll call this one value. And we're going to give this an integer value. Now while we're in there, we might want to also have another inner function called reset score, because at some point once we restart our game, we're going to need to be able to reset our score to scratch. And since our add to score is basically going to add or subtract, we need a way to reset it. So we'll have add to score with an input of value, and reset score, which is nothing. We're just going to call it, and the player's automatically going to wipe our score out. So let's go back into our player, and we're going to go ahead and class settings. This time, hopefully I remembered to compile and save. Let's do it anyways. Go into our player, class settings, implemented interfaces. We'll add our blueprint interface player, and we'll compile. Now we should have an add to score event. So let's go ahead and this is our line trace. Let's go over here. Now we should organize this better, and we will clean it up in a later video. So add to score. We have event add to score. And you know what? While we're here, reset score, event reset score. And the nice thing about that one's super simple while we're here. Boom, that's it. You know, let's move this over to the side. We'll never have to worry about it again. All we're doing when we call reset score is setting the player's score to 0. There we go, simple enough. So event add to score. What do we do here? Well, what we're going to do is add to the player's score. So we need to get the player's score, and we need to set the player's score. And we're going to take our score value, add another integer to it. We're going to add this value right here, and then set this value right here. And that's it. Organize this a little better, like that. And there we go. So what we're doing is when somebody calls the add to score event, we're taking the value they've given us, adding it to the current player score, and then setting the player score to that new value. Now, of course, we can't see anything on the screen yet. That's going to be in the user interface video. But we know that it is working. And actually, we can test that. We will do a breakpoint on that, and we'll actually test it out in a few minutes. So now that we can add to the score, we need to actually use it. Now, if you notice, you may have noticed that I hit compile and save a lot. I have a fast enough computer. It's not super fast, but we have a small project, and hitting save all, or hitting save, or hitting compile and save, or hitting Control S is a habit I've gotten into, because you don't want to spend 20 minutes tweaking a blueprint, hitting play, finding out you hit a infinite loop or Unreal Engine engine just decided it wasn't happy, or Windows 10 decides to do an update in the middle of your compiling, and you lose everything you've worked on. So generally, once I make a change, I will compile and save, just so that way I don't lose much. Let's go back to our enemy now. So we have our enemy, and we have our was hit event. This is really, really simple, and this is why we have an interface. So we're going to do a get player pawn. Remember, we're using a pawn for our player. So by doing get player pawn for player index 0, we're going to get the pawn that's assigned to player index 0. Now, if we didn't use a blueprint interface, what we would have to do is cast to the exact type of pawn it is, which would be player. And then we would have to do, as the player, we do add to score, call the function add to score. Because we're using an interface, we don't care what type of class the player pawn is. We just know we can do the add to score, and if it implements the blueprint interface player message, it's going to go ahead and call it. If it doesn't implement this interface, nothing's going to happen. No errors, no problems. It just simply will do nothing. And that's what's nice about it. We'll put a 1 for our value in there, and we'll go ahead and compile and save. Let's go back to our player for setting our score. Let's do a print string here and plug this in. For the most part, when you're using VR, this isn't going to do anything, but I actually want this here so we can debug. And you'll see that in a second. Let's play, and let's see if we can shoot, once again, our gun backwards. And of course, turn the controller back on. Okay, so we went ahead and we hit our breakpoint. Our enemy was hit. We called our add to score on our pawn. Our pawn was like, yep, I know what that is. It went ahead and took the player score, whose current value is 0, and it's going to set it with the additional number we gave it. If we step through here, first of all, if we look at player score, our current value is 0. We step, we check our player score, now our current value is 1. We go ahead and back to resume, and now we have our target destroyed, and our player score, which is on the player, is now updated with a new value, and it's now 1. Let's go ahead and remove these, and that's it. This is going to be our add to score event. That's all we need to do for now. We're going to update it in a little bit with the user interface, like I said, but for now, we have our enemy getting hit, adding to the score, and destroying itself. We have our player keeping track of that score and incrementing it as needed. That's it. There's our scoring. So we kind of need to be able to see stuff. So in our next video, we're going to create a UI. Now, UI in virtual reality is a slight issue, as you cannot use the standard UMG 2D widgets. With 2 screens right now, it kind of causes issues. We're going to delve into using UMG with the 3D widgets and use a few different workarounds to get input back.